Hi everybody, this is Maureen Wong for YourNextStamp.com. Today I have what's called a tent card for you, and what it is if you can look at it from the side, it makes a sort of tent shape, and so it stands up on a table for display, and you can see when it's standing up you have this element that is hanging in the window. And because it's hanging and has googly eyes and moves, it's just a really fun little bit to play with. And then when you're actually sending it off, you just fold this bottom portion in and it folds flat for mailing. So when your recipient gets it, they just have to push down on that middle support area and put it up and display it. And there's your tent card. And I'll have a still up here in just a second for you to see what that looks like, and then we'll get started. Okay, to start with, I'm going to be using the Love Struck stamp set, specifically this image of this heart with the arms out and the hearts around him, and the matching dies. And also later on I will be using the Your Next Stamp Heart Doily set, but we'll get to that in a minute. First of all, we're just going to take out that little heart guy, and I'm going to put him on my acrylic block and ink him up with Memento because I plan to color with Copics. And I have a piece of white cardstock scrap here. And then I'm going to ink it up again because I have a piece of pattern paper. I'm going to be doing a little bit of paper piecing on him. Just a little bit. I hope I'm not scaring you away with that. So we'll stamp him down again on the scrap of pattern paper. Okay. Now for the pattern paper, we're going to be using his tongue, and it is spotted and kind of looks a little bit weird. So what I'm going to do is take my R85 Copic marker, and I'm just going to color in his tongue. And of course you can use any colors you want. It's not going to hide the spots, but it's gonna make it look a little bit more just like a tongue rather than some little bit of the paper. And don't worry about his eyes, we'll take care of those later. Now for cutting it out, I'm not going to ask you to do a lot of fussy cutting on this. There's if you can see, there's a solid heart right in the middle, and then there's these scallop lines on the outside. We're actually going to cut off all those scallop lines and just cut on that straight heart shape. And so this is a really easy bit of paper piecing. I don't mind fussy cutting, but I've gotten really lazy lately with all the matching dies. And so I don't do a lot of it anymore if I can help it. So this is about the extent of how much fussy cutting I've been doing lately. Is just very super simple shapes and things if I want to do paper piecing, because I think paper piecing is a really nice effect. It gives it just a little bit more character when you have the patterns from the pattern paper coming through on your images. But I don't do a lot of fussy cutting anymore. So here is my image, and you can see there's still a lot of the image left that is white. So what we're going to do is take our Copic markers and do just a little bit of Copic coloring. I'm taking the R81 and 85, and I'm going to go in on the edges. Let me zoom in a little bit more. I'm going to go in on the edges of each little scallop shape and do just a little bit of the R85. And then what I'm going to do is come back in with the R81 and color all over those and sort of blend it in. These shades aren't right next to each other, like if I use the R83 and 85, but it's still going to give me a very nice blend. So that's how I'm going to do those scallops. Then for the hearts, I want something really dark, so I'm just going to come in with my R89 and fill those in. And you want to be careful because really dark colors, especially in the red families, like to bleed. So you don't want to go outside the lines on that. And then for his hands, I'm going to use E11 to do a little bit of very simple shading. And then I'm going to come in with the E00 and just go over the whole arm and hand. Okay, and let me finish coloring and I will be right back. Okay, here I finished coloring up the image. And then what we're going to do is take the matching dye and line it up over him as best as we can. And I'm going to put a little piece of painter's tape on there and run that through my die cut machine, and I'll be right back. Okay, and here is my image all cut out, and I'm going to carefully remove my painter's tape. And my die, and here is our finished piece. Well, not finished yet. I need to adhere my paper pieced heart. Right there. And then I said we're going to take care of his eyes, and what I have are little Google eyes, and these I bought from my craft store. They're from Doris, that's the brand, and I am using for this one the 5mm. And then I'm gonna take some glossy accents and put a little bit down there on each eyeball and stick on the Google eyes. If you don't have Google eyes or you don't want to use Google eyes, what you can do is just re-stamp the image on white cardstock, cut out the eyes, and then put it over the pink pattern paper so that he would have white eyeballs again. But I really like Google eyes. I think they're super fun, and this way it makes it really easy to cover up the fact that he had pink eyeballs for a little while in that paper piece section, and you can see how fun they are. So we're just going to set that aside to let the glossy accents dry. And let me put away the stamp set, and next we're going to get out the heart doily set. I've got a few pattern papers again from that same paper pad I've been using, which by the way is an old Bo Bunny paper pad. And I also have a piece of cardstock. So my white cardstock here, and I have a diagram showing how I did the scoring. You do a score line at 4 1/4, then 8 1/2, 9 1/2, and 10 1/2. And what you're going to do with this is at your 4 1/2, you're going to make that a mountain fold. The 4 1/4, not 4 1/2. 4 1/4, you're going to make a mountain fold. 8 1/2, you're going to make a mountain fold. Then the 9 1/2 is going to be a valley fold. And the 10 1/2 is going to be another mountain fold. And that is the base of your card for your tent card. Now what we're going to do is I have decided on this piece of pattern paper for the front of the card. And then I have this paper for the doily frame around it, and then this one for the inside. So let me go and trim these down, and I'll be right back. And actually, let me show you what I'm going to do for my doily. Again, I'm using the heart doily set of 6 stamps, and what I'm going to do is take that largest heart doily die, and I'm going to put it down, and I'm going to take the largest circle, and I'm going to try and center that within the heart doily, and then I'm going to take some tape and tape that down. I'm going to run that through my die cut machine, and then for these 2 pieces I'm going to cut them down. I'll be right back. Okay, so here are my pieces. I've cut both of these. This is the front and the inside panels. I've cut them down to 4 1/8 inches square, and then here you can see my doily frame. Isn't that cute? And we don't need the inside portion, so I'm just going to set that to the side. Now first what we're going to do is take the front panel, and this is the front of the card, the 4 1/4 square panel with the mountain fold. That's the front of the card. And what I'm going to do is get my ATG gun and adhere this. And normally what I do is I just adhere around the edges, but we're going to be cutting a hole in the center, so I'm going to put a little bit of adhesive towards the center to make sure that paper stays down once we cut the hole in the center. And we're going to center this on the front panel. And then what we're going to do is take this heart doily, and I am just going to adhere that down with some tacky glue. It doesn't have to be stuck down perfectly, but you want it to be stuck down pretty well. So I'm going to take my frame and line it up on that front how I want it. Centered. And adhere it down so that make sure that's exactly how I want it to be. Okay, and now what we're going to do is take that small, not small, this is actually the largest circle from the die set, and we're going to place it right in there. And because it's the same size that we already used to cut that frame out, it's going to nestle right in there, and you don't have to tape it down. If you want to, you can, just to make sure it doesn't shift. But what I'm going to do is just place that right in there and go to my die cut machine and cut that out. Okay, so I ran that through my die cutting machine, and now we have the perfect circle within that frame. And it cut out through both layers of the pattern paper that was on the front and the cardstock base. So now what we have is this, and I'm going to adhere my inside piece of pattern paper. And again, I'm just going to center that and stick it down. And I forgot to tell you, when I cut out this die cut of the heart guy, I went ahead and die cut another one just out of plain white cardstock, a piece of scrap, because that is actually going to form our little sandwich to hold him in place. And my little tip for holding him in place is that you could use twine or string or pretty much any kind of thing you want to hold him in. But a lot of times what happens when you use string, like thread, I used to use sewing thread, is that he tends to turn around in the hole, and I don't want him turning around because there's nothing on the back and that's not interesting. So my little tip for today is I have this 1/4 inch strip of acetate, and the length doesn't matter because I'm going to cut it down. But what you're going to do is you're going to want to adhere it inside the card. And if you don't think that ordinary tape is going to work, you can go ahead and use some glossy accents that sticks everything down really well. And I'm going to try and center that in there, and I'll just use a couple pieces of tape to stick that down. And then what we're going to do is, you can barely see that. Oh no, you can. There, yeah, you can see from the glare off of it. We're going to adhere our front and back to the acetate, but first I want to make sure that my acetate strip is only as long as it needs to be. So I'm going to take that backing and line it up where I think I'm going to want it. And then I'm going to cut off somewhere, not right at the edge, but into the more closer to the middle of it, and that's going to be where my die cut is going to land. So I'm just going to get my tacky glue and put glue all over my backer die cut. And you want to make sure you do a good job of gluing the top where the acetate strip is going to be, and down the middle. So is just put that backer behind, and I'm going to move it into place underneath my acetate strip where I wanted it. And check if that's right. Kind of centered. And then I'm going to take the top and put that on. And I really like using a liquid glue for this, because in case I don't put him down exactly over top of the backer piece, I have time to move him around, because it is a liquid, so there's a little bit of play time. But then once I have it exactly in place where I want it, I can go ahead and press that down, and then I can set that aside for a little while to let it dry to make sure it doesn't come apart. So you can see there how it swings freely still as if it were on a string, but it doesn't twist and turn because that strip of acetate is holding it in. And you can see that it's not, you know, really evident. You can see it here because of the glare, but it's not going to really show when your recipient is looking at it, so it just almost looks like that heart is just floating in the window. Now to finish up the card, we're going to open it up, and we're actually going to close down this portion. So we have a mountain fold here, and we're going to close that up into the card and then push down that last strip. Now I'm going to take my ATG gun, and I'm actually going to do 2 strips just to make sure that entire 1/2 inch piece is covered, because this is what's holding our tent card together. And then you hold this section down, and then you just close your top right over it and press down. And you can see that a little bit of the support is showing through, but that doesn't really matter, because once they open it up, it's gonna go down and it's not gonna show. So that is your tent card, and when your recipient gets it, they simply push down on the support on the inside, and they can stand it up. And I will have another still picture at the end here so you can see what that looks like all done, but basically that is our card. So I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you over at yournextstamp.com for these products and many, many more. Thank you very much for watching.